On a humid morning in Raleigh, North Carolina, Maria Lopez stood in the produce aisle of her local grocery store, her hand hovering over a beefsteak tomato. The price tag read $4.35 per pound, a far cry from the $2.99 she paid just weeks earlier. She hesitated, her fingers brushing the smooth red skin, then placed it back on the shelf. At home, her 5-year-old son would eat canned beans tonight instead of fresh salsa. Across the country, in cities from Los Angeles to Detroit, shoppers like Maria faced the same quiet dilemma. A tomato, once a staple, had become a luxury. This wasn't a drought or a blight. This was a policy. On July 14, 2025, the U.S. government imposed a 17% tariff on Mexican tomatoes, a decision that sent shockwaves through kitchens, school cafeterias, and supply chains. What began as a bureaucratic line item turned a humble fruit into a political flashpoint. For years, Mexico supplied 90% of America's fresh tomatoes, a $3 billion lifeline that kept grocery stores stocked and prices stable. The 2019 Tomato Suspension Agreement, a trade accord between the U.S. and Mexico, ensured this flow. But on that July day, without warning, debate, or a transition plan, the U.S. terminated the agreement. Tomatoes already rolling across the border were taxed the moment they hit U.S. customs. Within 2 months, tomato prices spiked 30 to 45% in major cities. In Raleigh, beefsteak tomatoes hit $4.35 per pound. In Los Angeles, Roma tomatoes, once under $1, climbed to $3.80. The fallout was immediate and personal. In suburban kitchens, tomato sauce was stretched thin to last another night. School cafeterias, like one in Champaign County, Illinois, replaced tomato wedges with pre-packed lettuce. A teacher there noted the children's confusion. They asked where the red was. Fast food chains swapped fresh salsa for processed paste. For Maria, a single mother in New Jersey, fresh tomatoes at $4 a pound were no longer an option. She turned to canned beans, cheaper and shelf-stable but saltier, less vibrant. In Laredo, Texas, Tom, a retired welder on Social Security, walked past the produce aisle entirely. "It's like a luxury store now," he said. In Detroit, the Wilson family, relying on SNAP benefits, couldn't stretch their $173 weekly grocery budget to include tomatoes, avocados, or peppers. "We haven't had a fresh salad in 3 weeks," the mother said. In Florida, small Latino-owned import businesses collapsed under the tariff's weight. Dozens shuttered within weeks, unable to absorb the price shock. Hundreds of workers, warehouse staff, drivers, farm liaisons, lost their jobs. These were people who had spent decades bridging U.S. demand with Mexican supply. Even trade experts were stunned. A July 2025 MarketWatch report warned that the tomato supply chain's collapse could spill into packaging, refrigeration, and transport. Yet Washington's justification was blunt: protect American farmers. But who, exactly? Florida's tomato farms operate only part of the year. California's production has dwindled for a decade, crippled by drought and labor shortages. While America grappled with rising prices, Mexico didn't protest or plead. They pivoted. In a matter of months, a new trade corridor emerged, silent and efficient. Trains now roll daily from Sinaloa, Mexico's agricultural heartland, through Chihuahua to Ontario and Quebec, bypassing U.S. borders entirely. This cold chain, a marvel of refrigerated containers kept at a precise 1 degree Celsius, ensures tomatoes, berries, and peppers arrive with 4 to 5 extra days of shelf life. Canadian Pacific Kansas City reports a 15% cut in logistics costs compared to U.S. trucking routes. Canada's top supermarkets, Loblaws, Metro, Sobeys, have inked 5-year deals with Mexican growers. A logistics director from Metro put it plainly: "We don't sign deals based on election cycles." By 2026, Bloomberg Green projects 48% of Mexico's fresh tomato exports will flow to Canada, up from less than 1% 2 years ago. U.S. distribution hubs in Texas, California, and Arizona saw contracts dry up as Canada invested in cold storage facilities in Montreal and Toronto. The ripple effects reached beyond North America. By late July 2025, logistics firms in Rotterdam and Hamburg mapped new cold chains from Brazil to Europe, bypassing U.S. ports. Brazil signed a 5-year deal to supply organic vegetables directly to the Netherlands via Portugal's Port of Sines, cutting out the U.S. middlemen. In August, delegations from Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan visited Sinaloa, studying Mexico's export resilience. A Korean advisor called Mexico the blueprint of resilience. Back in the U.S., the tariffs cost landed in the homes of ordinary Americans. Maria in New Jersey, Tom in Texas, And the Wilsons in Detroit weren't consulted on trade policy, but they paid the price. Fast food chains quietly dropped fresh salsa and pico de gallo. The tariff, sold as a shield for farmers, offered no relief for their climate, water, or labor struggles. Canada, meanwhile, saw opportunity in the chaos. Agricorp Ontario began testing dual-language packaging, labeling Mexican tomatoes as product of Canada under USMCA rules, legally clean and politically bulletproof. The tomato tariff exposed more than a trade dispute. It revealed a crack in America's global trade foundation. If a tomato can escape the US market, what else might follow? Today, it's produce. Tomorrow, it could be circuit boards, brake pads, or syringes. American shoppers, meanwhile, face higher prices and fewer choices, believing this protects farmers. But the farmers still struggle and the consumers bear the cost. A $4 tomato isn't just expensive, it's a symbol of priorities misaligned, of plans unmade, of consequences unforeseen. As Mexico and Canada build new trade bridges, America faces a question. Is this a tomato war, or the start of a larger unraveling? The answer lies not in headlines but in the quiet choices of nations, businesses, and shoppers, navigating a world that no longer waits for Washington to decide.